Here we go. All right, so I wanted to kind of like dive into this idea that familiarity is like a crutch. It kind of like, and I would not consider it a beneficial crutch. um, yeah, this is going to be a fun video. I know that I've explored in conversation with my sweetheart this idea that what you're used to will use you. And it's true. Now, what's interesting is that I've been diving more into uh, Dr. Joe Dispenza and the universe of the quantum field, and kind of like tuning into the unknown, leaving the known and tuning into the unknown, which is very hard for a lot of people because we are creatures of habit. Habit comes from memory. Memory, familiarity and everything. The known. We like to stay inside of what it is that we're used to, right? I've also done podcast episodes with my sweetheart regarding this whole idea of, the whole universe of Joe Dispenza and the known, the familiar, and everything. Um, but what's interesting that there are different things that I want to kind of like tap into in this video, cause um, I just think that this stuff is very fascinating. First and foremost, I actually want to dive into the way that I was many years ago growing up. I'm going to point more towards specifically high school. I used to be one of the most negative people I've ever met in my life. One of the most negative people I've ever met in my life. And it wasn't until years and years after high school that I realized that, the people that I was friends with back then and everything, I attracted them based on my energy. Again, like attracts like, you know. And it's interesting because, like, I wasn't always this, like, vibrant, like, kind of just, like, peaceful dude with, like, joy and, like, good energy and everything. In fact, um, when I first approached, like, positivity and optimism, there was a huge part of me that was in resistance, in opposition, actually protesting it. It was like, ugh, what the fuck is, ew, optimism, get that out of here. No, just change the picture. And it was very interesting because, like, when that first started occurring, when that first started developing, I was kind of like, I think that was kind of like the transition from like, wow, this is you know, I mean, it kind of, the reason why I opened up with this whole idea of familiarity and what you're used to will use you, is because it's the fucking truth. What you're used to will literally use you. If it doesn't matter whether or not it's beneficial for you. If it's familiar, it's known, um, it's what we're likely to go with most. And the interesting thing here is that you don't have to, like, you know, it's really that simple. What you're used to will use you. And this universe that is familiarity, the very reason why so many people kind of, they look outside of themselves for change. I mean, we've been conditioned into that since our, upbringing. We put everything regarding ourselves outside of ourselves. External motivators, external influences, this, that, and the other. We're sold a fucking lie, though. We're literally sold a fucking lie. Everything that we need for life is inside of ourselves. Our energy is what's most important out of everything. It's not about what we can get out there. It's about what we can be in here, which then attracts, right? And this whole thing that's very interesting about this, this thing that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, which is, you know, the quantum field and the unknown, and kind of like, you know, instead of it taking 30 years to get you what you want, like you could, if you go fucking into it, right? If you go deep into it, you could get it in far less time, you know. And it's not to say how much time that is. It's just it's far fucking less. It's crazy less. But what I think is really interesting about this whole thing is that I can't emphasize enough how important it is to understand that what you're used to will use you, because it will. That's not to say that it's beneficial, and quite honestly, most oftentimes it is not beneficial at all. What you're used to could be depression, it could be sadness, it could be frustration, it could be anger, it could be hatred. None of those things are beneficial. Now, let me just say real quickly, it is important to be congruent in regards to what it is that's happening. But, yes, congruency is important, but if you're so intact with your energy, if you're so intact with your inner universe, right? If you've got your shit together, you know, like if you're so good that nothing outside of you affects you, that's fucking key. That's key here, because here's the thing. If you can manifest what it is that you want in 3 months instead of 30 years, that's fucking crazy. That saves you decades worth of time, right? I think it's crazy that what we are used to, you know, like it uses us, and that's interesting because, like, think about it this way: your mind is set with a program, right? And you're waking up with that program. And if you're not changing that program, you're choosing that program. And if that program is not beneficial for you, it is a fucking hindrance to you. That's just the way that it is. So that program, if you're someone that experiences, you know, I don't know, stagnation in life, right? There's a good chance that you're living in a place of lack and survival. That lack and survival is not beneficial for you. It's not. Obviously it's not, because it's not getting you anything positive. You're only living from a place of lack and survival because you think that everything that you need in life is outside of you. So you're trying to manipulate your outer environment and everything to benefit you. But instead of doing that, what you could do is you could shift your inner energy, which then, if you shift your inner energy, by the way, let me just say, like is always going to attract like. And so with that, considering like always attracts like, if your energy is fucking incredible, right? Like, out of this world, you're going to attract based on that, right? Here's what's important to emphasize here. If you have the capacity to recognize your worth, and it's all the way up there, right? If you have the capacity to do that, abundance is what comes with that, because the universe wants to give based on how you see yourself, right? If you're seeing yourself from a place of lack, from a place of survival, from a place of, it's fucking dark in here and I can't see anything. Oh, wait a second, the light's right fucking there. You don't need this fucking flashlight, right? The universe wants you to recognize your worth, because then you receive gifts based on that. And I think that that's very interesting, because it's all based on that. It is literally all based on that. But literally, I want this idea of, let's work with it this way. Familiarity is like a crutch, and more often than not, it is a hindrance rather than a benefit. You know, it's kind of like this. It's like training wheels, right? Okay, they help you get to this point. But then if you keep using them, you're not going to learn more than what they provide you with, right? And so it's also kind of like, here, how do I... you have to realize your worth, right? And yes, I get it. Ideas have been planted in your head regarding who you are and what it is that you're worth and what it is that you're capable of since you were a fucking kid, right? And interestingly enough, from that point, when we're kids, we're like fucking sponges. So, ironically enough, we soak everything up. We soak everything up, and that shapes our perception of life and our perception of who we are and what it is that we're deserving of and what it is that we're worthy of, what we can and can't do, and all that stuff. It's so interesting how out of alignment with the universe and worth all that stuff is, because all of this stuff is just coming from people who feel the same fucking way that they're making you feel. That's all that it is. That's literally all that it is. So when you can realize that, like all right, say for instance, this person's parents traumatized them, but the trauma that comes from this person's parents were actually this person's parents' trauma, right? So it's really just projections of bullshit onto everyone, from parents, from all this, that, and the other, and it's just unnecessary, misdirected, unconscious, all that stuff. And when you can see clearly straight through it all, through all the bullshit, and realize that, oh wow, yeah, this is all just based around familiarity. This is all a matter of what you're used to will use you. And it's just, that's just the way that it goes. A lot of people live. It's comfort. It's familiarity. It's that's all that this is. But when you can realize that, like, every day you wake up and you get to make a decision of who you are, of what you want to be, that's when everything changes. And yeah, everyone has the potential to change that. So that's it.